Good morning and welcome to day 3 of Common Bound 2014. I'm your live stream host, KMO, and I'm here with Lauren Hudson of SolidarityNYC. Lauren, thanks for joining us on camera.
Thank you for having me.
So, SolidarityNYC, what is that?
So, SolidarityNYC is a collective of activists and organizers working to promote the solidarity economy in New York. And what that means is celebrating those economic practices that are ethics-driven and connecting each other within the sector of the solidarity economy. How can we help each other do this work? So that's a lot of the work that we do. So
for folks who aren't familiar with the term, what is the solidarity economy?
So the solidarity economy has a particular history. It's grounded in the anti-globalization movement from Latin America, came about in the mid-90s, and it's really about economic practices that are ethics-driven. We have around 5 principles that are in flux that guide us, things that are ecologically sustainable, things that are democratically managed, things that promote justice. So that means that there's a wide sort of range of what those things are, and they often fall under different sort of economic categories, but we like to really hone them in as solidaristic. So worker co-ops, for instance, that's an easy one that people think of as something democratically managed and has a justice drive to it. Even things like time banks, where people are exchanging time and interacting with each other in a different way than a typical transaction. CSAs, food co-ops, people even get into community gardens, just different ways that we use value and think about value in exchange.
So is the solidarity economy something that can comfortably coexist with free market capitalism and private property?
Well, it already is, and that's the big thing.
Though? Is it a comfortable coexistence?
Is it a comfortable coexistence? I think that different parts of the solidarity economy comfortably coexist with that. But the big thing about it is that it has existed and will continue to, and these are practices that we're really celebrating as not as this new sticker to place upon something, but it's a different type of empowerment when you're saying most of your transactions and values that you exchange have nothing to do with capitalism. They're exchanges like this where we're learning from each other right now. So it's that sort of work that's already supported.
And you're involved in another project that involves data and mapping. And please say more about that.
Yeah, so actually the mapping project that we're doing is within SolidarityNYC, but it's allowed us to be connected to other movement organizations throughout the country doing similar sorts of work. So our mapping project started as a way for people in the solidarity economy to see each other. We were recognizing that we were sort of working in silos where maybe worker co-ops only knew of worker co-ops but didn't know about other people like credit unions and things like that. Like there's a direct supply funding chain that could happen there. So we decided, what if we just plotted this all on a map, and so people could see it and see actually how plentiful this is, because when you talk about the solidarity economy as we're sort of edging on this, it can get kind of esoteric. So how do we make that more physical? So we did this work, and now I am a board member of the Data Commons Cooperative, and that's a co-op of other movement organizations like ourselves and other grassroots organizations exchanging data so that we make sure everything that we have is correct and consistent. It's a very particular and granular need to make sure the information is correct, and you don't want to keep reinventing the wheel and having to keep doing this work if it's already done and out there and people are willing to share it. So it's this beautiful open source data project that we get to engage with.
So in one sense, you're creating a commons that various people can use to, as you say, not have to reinvent the wheel, because whatever you want to do, chances are somebody else has also wanted to do it.
Exactly.
And may have found a way to do it that you haven't thought of. Yeah.
Precisely.
Can you maybe give some concrete examples of the sort of cross-pollination that has taken place because of this mapping project?
Well, with SolidarityNYC, one of the biggest cross-pollination things that we've done was we were able to have a convening of the people that we had mapped and that we had interviewed. We had done a project called the Deep Listening and Movement Building Project that resulted in a report. But through that process, we were mapping all of those places we were talking to, and we were asking questions like, what are your needs? What do you wish you could get from people doing similar work? What ties you to the solidarity economy? And that has led us to do several sorts of gatherings about that and what are the potentials for creating something more institutional and citywide and supported, relating credit unions to co-ops, to time banks, to movement organizations that may not be doing direct economic justice work, but are still very much our allies. And so that connection is crucial because we define these sort of common ties to create a movement of movements and to support each other. That's what it's about.
So what excites you right now? What developments do you see taking place that really give you hope and more than just hope, but real genuine enthusiasm for the future of our civilization, or maybe even smaller than that?
Okay. For humanity. I think that something that's been really exciting for me, especially when coming into places like Common Bound, is seeing the regional organizing work and that real cross-sector collaboration. That is so important because so much of what Solidarity NYC is about is breaking out of those typical silos and linking things that are not necessarily intuitively together or thought of together, but very much are because they both share the same ethics and justice principles. So when you see people coming together and really thinking about how they can serve one another and lift each other up, and I think that's what the thing is. That's what the movement is. It's supporting that type of work. So that always re-inspires me to keep doing the work that we're doing. And it's always really great to hear about those successful examples of when those partnerships happen.
So the mapping work that you've done, has it resulted in any publicly available, say, websites that people could go to and have a look at?
Well, the map lives on our website, which is SolidarityNYC.org. And we're sort of entering a second phase with the map where now that we've had this sort of inward within our sector visioning and seeing each other, and that was really powerful, we've been getting people that have come to the map from different walks of life that don't necessarily have the solidarity economy analysis, but are looking for a place to, to get sliding scale healthcare, looking for the very particular things that the map shows. So now what we've been thinking is, how do we make that information more intuitive and more helpful for people to interact with? And maybe that means a directory, or maybe that means a more solid definition of terms. So we're bouncing around a lot of ideas, but people have definitely come to us that are outside of what we would call our allies or the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis, using this map as a tool. So yeah, that lives on our site. It's available to anyone, as does the report that we did, our deep listening project. That's all there.
So there are probably people out just serving their own needs and the needs of their local communities who are in fact helping to build the solidarity economy, even though they don't know it.
Exactly.
And perhaps they'll go to your website and they'll look at the map and they'll see that they're not on it, and they'll realize they need to be. Can they get in touch with you through the website? Well,
the map is user generated, so they submit themselves on there and they pop up. So there's that. We started by putting the things that we knew and pooling our collective knowledge, but then the map has really spun to people submitting, hey, did you know that this thing is happening here? This barter exchange place is over here. This shared art space in Brooklyn is there. So, we can't be everywhere at once. We're a collective of 10 people. So that's the great success of the map, is that it is user-generated data.
So you're obviously no technophobe. You use technology in your work, but you also told me before we got on camera that you don't have a Facebook account.
I do not. Call out.
Yeah. Well, it's hopefully a helpful call out, because I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, or I don't want you to feel as though you're being presumptuous, but perhaps words of advice for people on the appropriate use of digital technology.
The appropriate use.
Yeah, because Facebook, as I'm sure you know, can be a black hole. And just because you have 5,000 friends on Facebook doesn't mean that you have 5,000 meaningful human connections in your life. But you are actually using technology to forge what I would imagine are genuinely useful and meaningful connections between people.
So, yeah, it definitely depends on your approach to what you want the technology to do. The way that Solidarity NYC and Data Commons, we use technology, is to already express these connections that exist. And it's not to say that you cannot have genuine connections online. I have my own reasons for not having Facebook, frankly, because I don't think I'm very good at it. But what I find empowering about the the technology aspect of this work that we're doing with the new economy, Solidarity Economy Space, is that it's expressing the partnerships that we have and making ourselves aware of each other. You don't have to know necessarily everyone's like personal history or what they ate for lunch that day or whatever, but it's very good at connecting people with similar interests and doing similar work. And I think that's the crux of why this exists online, and that it has to be accessible. And just because our things exist online and we use technology doesn't mean that we need to shy away from the very physical ways of representing our work. So that's also something we've been exploring, is how do we get to people that don't necessarily have all these devices, because that is a silo. That's a mark of privilege to be able to engage on Facebook and participate in all these conversations and do webinars and whatever. So you have to hit all these different levels. It can't just be one thing.
Well, that sounds like a great place to end, but I'd like to offer you the opportunity to say anything else that's on your mind.
I'm just really excited to be here, and it's always inspiring to be with NEC and to have these conversations. And yeah, I'm really hopeful that the momentum that we generate here will keep on going. So that's what I have to say.
All right. Lauren Hudson, thank you very much for coming to Common Bound 2014.
Thank you so much for having me.